The community needs Mr. Sonnenberg to get treatment in a confined setting and practice that sobriety for a substantial period of time before he gets released.
We will go on the record in the matter 24 CF 252. Wait, before I go on the record,
A young little child.
My client's daughter, she's 6.
I presumed that. This is very serious and it could involve a lot of things said. And I wouldn't want any negative things or things said potentially that could harm or hurt her opinion of her father and her mother or anyone involved. You're the mom? What do you think? This will be a while, but I know that you were involved. She was as well. I just have a fear of court cases, especially serious ones impacting children. Okay. We will go on the record in the matter 24 CF 252, State of Wisconsin versus Andrew Sonnenberg. This date appears through District Attorney Kevin Schmidt in person. We have Renee Landgraf, Defense Counsel in person. Mr. Sonnenberg appears in person in custody. We're set today in this matter for the sentencing portion of this case. Mr. Sonnenberg pled guilty to first-degree recklessly endangering safety, a Class F felony. The other matters were dismissed and read in for purposes of sentencing. The court ordered a pre-sentence investigation report. The court has reviewed that report. Defense ordered an alternate pre-sentence investigation report. The court has also reviewed that report. I need to briefly look to see if I wrote down anything that jumped out to me as being a material mistake or fact. I don't notice any. All right. This matter did involve a last minute after the plea competency review. The court during that review did find the defendant competent and able to proceed to sentencing. So we are here today. Victims' rights compliance.
We are.
All right, we're in compliance. We're going to have 2 victim impact statements. Before I begin, Mr. Schmidt, did you receive both of the pre-sentence investigation reports?
I did. I have no correction to the court's PSI.
All right. And I know Ms. Landgraf did as well. And as it relates to the defense's PSI, there are certain corrections that Ms. Landgraf has filed with the court. Ms. Landgraf, did you review both of these documents with Mr. Sonnenberg?
I did, Your Honor. The document that I filed yesterday has the minor corrections to both PSIs.
Okay. Oh, to both. Yes, that's right. To the DOC PSI and to the alternate. I did review that yesterday, so I was aware of that. I apologize for misstating. And you thoroughly reviewed those with Mr. Sonnenberg?
To the best that I could, yes, Your Honor.
All right, to the best that you could. So you did all that you can as a defense counsel to be able to go over the documents with Mr. Sonnenberg?
Yes, it was a very emotional process. So we had to take some time and to get through it. Instead of just reading word for word, I kind of translated the paragraphs into my own words to let Mr. Sonnenberg know what was being conveyed.
All right, and for the record, you are a very experienced attorney, very good at your job, and in certain aspects, you do that as well with the plea question and waiver of rights. That's your own form, your own computation of that, but it has always been accurate and correct in the court's view of when you have done that. Mr. Sonnenberg, I know that this is an emotional day for you. It's a serious day for you. Did you have enough time to go over both of these documents with your attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
And did you understand what these contain?
Yes, Your Honor. A little bit, yeah.
Did you find were there any material facts or anything that was wrong that you want to correct to the court other than what Ms. Landgraf has filed?
No.
No, all right. And I'm gonna say, Ms. Landgraf, if he is going to make a statement, I will need that microphone down because it's hard to hear him. There we go. All right.
We don't need to do that until you actually type.
Off the record. Is he not handcuffed?
No, he's got a brace on his arm. We don't have handcuffs.
All right. I'm sure it's a situation that we have a lot of enforcement here, that if something were to go awry, then we are here. All right, back on the record. Okay, so let's start with the first statement, Ms. Bauer. Who is going to come and make a statement?
That black desk.
Off the record again, I would feel more comfortable if we had a law enforcement officer on that side as well. Thank you. Thank you, Captain. Back on the record. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Colin Gerald O'Toole, COLLINGERALD O''TOOLE.
All right. Officer O'Toole, if you would like to please present your statement to the court. And if you're reading something, please read it slowly so that the court reporter can take down everything. And if this is going to be emotional for you and you need to stop, that's fine. I'd rather have you stop and take a breath than to not understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay?
The first one will be for Officer Zajac, who couldn't be here today. Your Honor, on the evening of December 16, 2024, my life could have been taken from me. On Monday, December 16, 2025, at approximately 5:55 p.m., I was nearing the end of my shift. It had been a long day, and I was with Officer O'Toole, who was in phase 3 of his field training. We had just cleared the Burnett County Jail after handling another incident and were heading home for the night. As I pulled into my driveway, a call came over the radio, one that instantly made my heart sink. It was from St. Croix Tribal Dispatch, relaying a 911 call that had came in at Burnett County Dispatch. Raina LaPointe, the mother of Monica, said Andrew was drunk and had locked Monica in the bathroom. He wouldn't let her out. I knew Andrew. I knew his history. I knew what he was capable of. A man I knew from prior violent incidents. Monica had a restraining order against him. I knew he was capable of harm. I knew she was in danger. And I knew that if I waited or checked off duty, as I was just minutes from doing, someone could have been hurt or worse, killed. What happened next changed the way I will respond to calls for the rest of my life. Monica had a protection order against him for a reason. He's a big man, aggressive when intoxicated. And Monica is significantly smaller, far more vulnerable. My instincts told me there wasn't time to wait. There wasn't just another domestic call. This was a situation that could turn deadly if we didn't act fast. I pulled out of my driveway and responded emergent. I wasn't going to let Monica become another name, another statistic, another woman failed by timing and hesitation. At 6:02 p.m., I arrived. A familiar sedan was parked in the driveway, Jamie Long's vehicle. She was sitting inside. As I walked past, she looked at me with wide, anxious eyes and said the word I'll never forget. Andrew's inside. When I arrived on scene, Officer O'Toole, my trainee, was right behind me. As I approached the Split level home, I saw Monica standing in the foyer, terrified. The front door was wide open, and I could hear crashing, yelling, and chaos inside. Then the words no officer wants to hear. He's getting a knife. Seconds later, I saw Andrew sprint up the stairs into the kitchen, and then the crashing grew louder. He was tearing through drawers, and I knew exactly what was coming next. I secured Monica out of the house and turned to confront what I feared would be the final seconds of my life. Andrew came charging down the stairs, full sprint, straight at me, wielding a large kitchen knife. The only thing standing us was a storm door, already damaged, the latch broken. He began slamming the blade against the glass. Full force strikes, not tapping, not threatening. He was attacking with the clear intent to kill me. Each time his knife hit the glass, I braced for the pain to shatter. I could see the rage in his eyes, not fear, not confusion, just raw, violent rage. Inches separate that knife from my body. I gripped the door with everything I had, knowing that at any moment it could give way. I tried to de-escalate. I tried to speak to him. There was no humanity in his response, only aggression. He was out of control. He was focused on ending my life. In that split-second moment, with a weapon pointed at me and no barrier worth trusting, I had to make a decision, use deadly force or try to reposition. I looked behind me and saw something that stopped me. Ran a LaPointe and a child near the stairs. I knew if I pulled my weapon and fired, I might hit one of them. So instead of protecting myself, I risked myself and I retreated to move to a tactical position. And just as I did, Officer O'Toole discharged his firearm, saving my life and possibly others. Afterwards, I helped render aid to Andrew because that is our duty as officers. But it does not erase what happened. It does not take away the fear, the trauma, or the reality that I came within inches of being stabbed to death while doing my job, while protecting others. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Andrew Sonnenberg made the choice to turn a residence into a battleground, to turn a knife into a weapon, and to try to take a life that night, mine. Since then, I've struggled with the psychological toll of that encounter, the weight of having to make a life or death decision in a split second, the memories, that knife slamming into the glass, the look in his eyes, I still hear it, I still see it. I ask you to understand I wear a uniform, but I'm human. I have a family. I have people who expect me to come home. And on December 16th, at approximately 40 seconds after arriving the scene, that was nearly taken from me by one man's violent and deliberate actions. The hardest part of the whole situation was it was a normal shift that day. I was just pulling into my residence, getting ready to see my family when I backed out of my driveway. I can't help but think I didn't call my wife or my kids when doing so. And if I got killed that night, the last thing they would have heard, the last thing they would have seen was my squad leaving the driveway after pulling in. No goodbye, no I love you, nothing, just taillights. The part that hurts the most, knowing what they would have felt, they would have had a lifelong sadness that wouldn't go away. They would always have those questions of what if, hold him accountable, not just for what he tried to do to me, but for the chaos, the trauma, and the danger he brought into that home that night, to Monica, to the child, and to my family. I'm asking, no, I'm pleading for you to impose a maximum sentence allowed under law. Andrew didn't just break the law that night. He broke a woman's sense of safety. He shattered trust, and he showed complete disregard for the protection order meant to keep Monica safe. His actions were calculated, violent, and terrifying. Monica could have been seriously injured or worse. The fear in her mother's voice, the scene we walked into, the trauma that Monica will carry, none of it will be undone. He was proven time and time again that he's a danger, and to anyone he tries to protect her. The only way to ensure Monica's safety and to send a message that this kind of abuse will not be tolerated is to hold him fully accountable. Please, Monica, Please, for Monica, for her family, for every victim who prays for the protection that comes too late, give Andrew the maximum sentence. He earned it. Officer Mike Sajak, badge number 435.
Thank you. Now, Mr. O'Toole, yours, please.
Yep.
And again, if you need to take a second, you may do so.
Okay. On December 16, 2024, a day that changed everything. It's my first day of
I'm
face.
just going to ask you to slow down a little bit.
Okay.
You read Officer Zajak's very slow. and
Okay.
Good. So please do that with yours.
Thank you. A day that changed everything. I was in my first day of phase 3 FTO. I was so new that I didn't even know if I had my badge on correctly. At 6:02 p.m., my career changed. My family changed. I changed.
Take as much time as you need. It's a little bit more difficult, I'm sure, reading your own versus somebody else's.
I was on the phone with my wife when the call of a domestic in progress came out. I told my wife that I loved her and I would be home soon. Never did I think that was almost the last words I'd ever tell her.
Officer O'Toole, you may take your time.
Never did I think I wouldn't be able to tell her I was okay, how much I loved her, or how I almost didn't come home. Being so new, I showed up to the wrong address. I thought I was going to get made fun of for it. Little did I know that mistake most likely saved my life. Mike and I arrived at the same time, hearing screaming of "he's got a knife." When I noticed Andrew coming down the stairs, knife raised above his head, coming for Mike and I. My only thought going through my head was my family and my partner's family. How could I explain to them that I failed in doing my duties of keeping my partner safe? I couldn't let that happen. Andrew, even as you were laying on the ground, you still showed no remorse, no care, no regret for what you were putting your kid and family through. You will never change. You refuse to take accountability for your actions. If it wasn't for Mike's bravery of holding the door, even in the face of imminent death, everything would have been different. If it wasn't for my first FTO teaching me and preparing me for my career ahead.
I'm going to guess by FTO, you mean field training officer?
Yes, my field training officer, Kate Barker. Teaching me and preparing me for the career ahead, everything would have been different. If it wasn't for me going to the wrong house, everything would have been different. Even though I protected people and did my job and came home, it has not been without its challenges. I've spent many sleepless nights replaying the night of December 16th in my head and wondering what my future would look like. My family and I have shed many tears over an avoidable situation that could have costed my life or my partner's life. When people say life flashes before your eyes, I never believed them until that day. What I saw that day was my wife holding hands with a little girl. I knew if I didn't stop Andrew, I'd never get to see this future with my wife. I believe that was God telling me what he had planned for me. When I was at my lowest, I told my wife I couldn't see through this, and she asked me if I could see my next step and said, "Just take it. I will be there to catch you if you fall." That's what true love is. That night, I had to start my recovery journey. Through that, I got adopted into a new family, the law enforcement family, a family that checked on me continuously throughout my journey of coming back to the job, a family that has my back until the very end, a family that never let me be alone in my darkest hour. I can't thank the Burnett County Sheriff's Office, St. Croix Tribal, Siren, Webster, and Grantsburg Police Departments enough for their continuous support in my journey. Holly Hakes has helped me ground myself and the support that I've received and focusing on the future ahead. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. This is where I belong. This is what I'm meant to be. I would do it all over again for my brothers and sisters in blue. I will keep doing it because it's my job to make sure everyone goes home safe. In the words of Mark Peterson, in the end, all that matters is I did the right thing. All I ask is that justice be served in a way that reflects the seriousness of what my family and I endured. Thank you.
Thank you, Officer O'Toole. All right, Mr. Schmidt. Argument and sentencing recommendation, please.
Thank you. A segment in here, I'm going to switch to playing some video footage for the court. I'll let the court know when I'm going to do that. I've already set it up with the clerks prior to the hearing.
Thank you for doing that.
The state's recommendation here is going to be towards the high end of the court's PSI recommendation. I'm going to be recommending 7.5 years initial confinement and 4 years extended supervision, which is the top end of that.
All right.
The driving factors of my recommendation are, I think, in order that I think the court should prioritize them, which is incapacitation, specific deterrence, rehabilitation, and general deterrence. I think it's most appropriate for me to start with my argument based off of the presentation by the officer here, reading Officer Zajac and Officer O'Toole's statements, by emphasizing how really dangerous this offender is. You heard some of that alluded to by Officer Zajac's statement. His criminal history is just riddled with either dealing convictions or battery convictions or read-ins. Most people who were talked to by both PSI writers, both the one who prepared the sentencing memorandum for the defense, as well as the DOC agent who prepared the courts, reference multiple incidences across Mr. Sonnenberg's life in particular, where Mr. Sonnenberg was in possession of knives and a need to disarm him. That's been like a recurring thing mentioned in those PSIs. The instant case involves him stabbing at and chasing 2 police officers before they really even had a chance to say much of a word to him. It was just wanton and pointless and potentially lethal. That's where I should start with it. The actual fact pattern here and the dangerousness of it. 2 tribal police officers were called with what initially sounded like a domestic call, an unwanted person call, a violating a restraining order call. You've heard some description of it already. As they approached the building, dispatch warned them over their radio of an ongoing shouting and crashing in there, as well as mention of a knife. As they approached the front door, Monica Martinson left the residence while warning the police that Sonnenberg was getting a knife. As she exits, when you watch Officer Zajac's body cam, Andrew Sonnenberg is at the top of the stairs with both knives in his hands, 2 of them. Officer Zajac closes what I think could be fairly characterized as a rather flimsy storm door as Sonnenberg barrels down the door or down the stairs and charges at the door and collides with it with full force and the momentum of charging down a flight of stairs. He changes his grip on the knives to get a firmer grip on the largest knife and to adjust it for downward thrusts towards the glass pane of the storm door. He swings in particular directly in the direction of where Officer Zajac is behind the door, bracing it with his foot to prevent it from opening, to prevent Mr. Sonnenberg from gaining access to himself as well as to Monica, who had just left the building. Zajac moves back from the the knife thrust moving back from the door, and immediately Sonnenberg bursts through the door with both knives, one in each hand, charges at the police, and is quickly stopped by the fast actions of Officer O'Toole. Because there was so much talk about this incident in the PSI, that's why I think the court really, to understand the dangerousness, as well as I think the fastness of it, how much happens in such a fast period of time, I'm going to need to play it for the court. I'm going to be playing the segment of this from both Zajak's perspective as well as O'Toole's. It's going to be less than 1 minute of video from each of their body cams. That's how much happened in such a short period of time. When we do suppression motions, when we analyze constitutional issues, something the Supreme Court really tells us is to consider the fast need to respond and make a decision, the snap judgments law enforcement needs to make for safety reasons every day. And I think this really emphasizes why that exists, why that's a matter of law and not just a matter of fact. I want the court to watch for the things I just described. I want the court to watch in particular for this one. So I'm going to start that now.
Before he does that, my client would like to leave the courtroom for the video playing.
Yes,
All right, I do have to require him being here for the sentencing portion, but for the video portion, does that go into your argument? Do you talk while the video plays, Mr. Schmidt?
I was going to.
Can you refrain from doing that?
What I'll do then is I'm going to play each of their videos twice and then I'll comment later. The reason I'm playing it twice is just it's so much so quickly.
All right. Law enforcement comfortable with that and bringing him to the elevator or elevator room? All right, thank you. Then we can remove Mr. Sonnenberg for the playing of the video portion only upon his request. What?
Do you need me to get it? No, do you need me to get a presentation thing? Or
I think I can do it. We don't do it a lot, but okay, so should be on.
Perfect.
I'm in the house with Monica.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I hear a lot of screaming on the phone.
Get out of the house.
She
Get out.
says
My
he's
daughter's
grabbing a knife.
upstairs.
Let's go, let's go.
Hey,
Oh my God.
Andrew, stop, stop, stop. Just, hey, stop. Want a gunpoint?
One more time.
I'm in the house with Monica.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I hear a lot of screaming on the phone.
Get out of the house.
She
Get out.
says he's grabbing a knife.
Let's go, let's go.
Hey,
Oh my God.
Andrew, stop, stop, stop. Just, hey, stop. Want a gunpoint?
I hear a lot of screaming on the phone now. She says he's grabbing a knife.
Mike, you hear that?
Oh my God.
Okay, get out. Andrew, stop, stop, stop. Just, hey, stop. Want a gunpoint? Shots fired, shots fired.
I hear a lot of screaming on the phone now. She's busy grabbing a knife.
Mike, you hear that?
Oh my God.
Hey, get out.
Andrew, stop, stop,
Let's
stop.
go, nigga.
Just stop. Hey, stop.
One at gunpoint, one at gunpoint! Shots fired, shots!
All right, can you knock so they can come back in?
And then just for the record, I played the first 44 seconds of Michael Zajak's body cam. I played it twice. For Officer O'Toole's, I played the first 26 seconds twice. That's going to be on a flash drive. I do submit to the court at the close of my sentencing argument.
Right, thank you.
When I watch that body cam footage, a number of questions race across my mind every time I watch it. First, what if Officer Zajak did not retreat when he did? What if that storm door panel, that flimsy glass there, what if that broke? What if Officer O'Toole did not fire and also chose to retreat? Would they have been running away from Mr. Sonnenberg? Would they have gotten away? What if the police were 5-10 minutes later on arrival? Would Sonnenberg have gotten out the knives anyways with Rana and Monica? He has a history of violence, in particular with Monica. With what Mr. Sonnenberg consumed, according to the PSI, the vodka, the cocaine, the fentanyl, the methamphetamine, there's no way to know. I don't think he could possibly know, and that is terrifying. For Monica, for his daughter, for the police, for literally anyone in the community who might have been coming into contact with him when he was doing that. His own family has complained that they've had to disarm him of knives themselves, that this is a recurring problem with him. Just for those reasons, probation, where the court has to start with every sentencing, cannot be the answer. Andrew Sonnenberg cannot be safely in the community for treatment. So let's talk about rehabilitation here for a second, because both PSIs talk about rehabilitation a lot. There's a lot of conversation about traumatic brain injury and injuries he suffered from terrible car crashes back 20 years ago, as well about his substance abuse. He himself sources all of his violence, all of his criminal history back to substance abuse. I have mixed feelings about that in this case, because yes, he has the memory issues and the traumatic brain injury from the car crash. And yes, he's got the substance abuse issues. But when you read the PSI, both Sonnenberg and his family seem to have been very acutely aware of this. They've known about these issues for a long time, and they've persisted. And it doesn't matter how many terms of probation he's been on, how many sentences he's gotten. He's been evaluated up and down the wazoo by state and federal authorities for mental health and AODA. Decades of that kind of treatment, both on supervision and in a confined setting, has been to no avail. The awesome resources available through the federal system were not enough. They even had a reentry program, something that, quite frankly, would be a dream in Wisconsin, that Sonnenberg once failed out of and then the second time just refused to do. The reasons I have mixed feelings about the rehabilitation for this fact pattern is because, yes, you could look at Mr. Sonnenberg and say to yourself, if we can just get the right treatment for the traumatic brain injury and the memory issues, we know there are treatment paradigms for that. There's therapies, there's oversight. And if we can just treat the AODA issues, then if these really are the causes of all his behaviors, then that should work. That should end the criminal behavior. It should end the pattern of undesirable behavior. But look at that as a double-edged sword, because we can't have the arrogance to say it's going to work this time. Madness is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. The expectation should be, regardless of what the sentence is today, if we're just using logic and science and prediction and believing in the assessment tools that Mr. Sonnenberg is likely to recidivate again, and it is likely to be violent because of this history, because of the history of non-success rehabilitating. And because when you look at issues like that, when a person has a 20, 25-year history of abusing substances and getting violent, it really brings to mind why in 2013 the legislature got rid of the voluntary intoxication instruction, because they just thought it was a bad idea. If you read the legislative materials for when they did that, it doesn't make any sense for a person to be alleviated from responsibility from choosing to use a substance that causes criminal behavior. Yes, there's the substance abuse disorder. It's harder for them, but there are a lot of people who are alcoholics, who are addicted to controlled substances, who don't have these issues. They don't have this level of burden on society. Because when it gets down to it on this one, the risk that, say, a drunk driver has to society is the speculative risk of maybe they'll hit someone. Or the risk of someone who is addicted to drugs might be, maybe if they have a history of stealing, they might go out and steal. The risk of Mr. Sonnenberg is different than a lot of other people because the risk is of death and great bodily harm to others, of him working himself up into a state where he can be that dangerous to people. The instant offense, the elements of the offense is literally that. It's risk, it's substantial and unreasonable risk of death or great bodily harm. That's what he did. And what caused it was him hanging out with a friend and consuming a large amount of alcohol and drugs, working himself up to violate a restraining order with his acts. That's what he was trying to do when police just arrived and he attacked them. That's why in this case, the solution has to be prison, and it has to be a substantial amount of prison. Prison is the only place where treatment can be safe for the community. Treatment is necessary in a confined setting here. I think even beyond that, I think not just treatment, I think Mr. Sonnenberg needs a controlled environment where he can't be a risk of death or great bodily harm to others, where he can practice the sobriety that's supposed to come after treatment. If he can't accomplish that in prison, he's not going to accomplish it outside. There is some suggestion in the PSI with statements from Sonnenberg and some other people that he shouldn't be sent to prison because he'll just use drugs in prison, which is really counterintuitive, because if a person is going to use drugs in prison where drugs are less available, where there's less control over, where there's less drugs available and more control over them, then they're obviously going to be greater risk of using drugs in the community. Just the instant case here involved polysubstance abuse. The community needs Mr. Sonnenberg to get treatment in a confined setting and practice that sobriety for a substantial period of time before he gets released. And prison is the place where that can happen. Because when Mr. Sonnenberg's out in the community, it's easy for him to get controlled substances, even if he were on probation. It would just be a simple drive to a liquor store or using old connections to get controlled substances. And when he uses those, he becomes unpredictable and potentially lethally dangerous to the community. Prison is a consequence, you can tell from the PSI, that is extremely negative to him, meaning he really doesn't want it. So it also has a strong deterrent effect to him. Finally, I have to speak to the gravity of the offense, which is, it's different than the other things I've described so far. I've argued for incapacitation in the sense that the more time Mr. Sonnenberg is away from the community, the more time it's protected because of the unpredictable, dangerous nature of him using controlled substances and the impracticality of preventing him from using controlled substances while on supervision. Specific deterrence, the long prison sentence, ratcheting up consequences. Rehabilitation, where it's a double-edged sword, where it seems if you could treat some of his underlying conditions, the substance abuse, the traumatic brain injury, he might be better, but the lack of success over 20 years would suggest it's perhaps hoping a bit too much to think that's likely to happen. And finally, the general deterrence, which ties into what I'm going to say about gravity of the offense. This is a person who charged the police with knives before the police had done or really said anything. The court just watched the body cam I played. The officers just arrived there. They hadn't even had contact with Mr. Sonnenberg. They're warned over the radio of shouting and knives. They hear shouting. They hear Monica leave the residence and mention knives. And Sonnenberg appears at the top of the stairs with one knife in each hand and just charges them. No discussion. No, let's talk about this. You heard Officer Zajac try to talk with Mr. Sonnenberg at the door after he charged and started slamming the knife into it to no avail. It was completely pointless, reasonless, potentially lethal violence. That demands treating this with high gravity. It might be the police were charged at because they are police. They were targeted for that reason, that identity. There's some stuff in the PSIs to suggest that. Comments from Mr. Sonnenberg about being paranoid about the police and them targeting him and complaining about the jail. Perhaps even more terrifying is the possibility that Sonnenberg would have charged anyone, as I described before, concerned neighbor, different family member, Jamie Long, who drove him there and didn't think any of this was a good idea to begin with. Someone who wouldn't have a gun with them or have training about what to do in these scenarios or not be his relative to be able to, hey, Andrew, or let's just talk it out. Just give me the knife. Someone who wouldn't be able to do that. What happens if that's just a concerned neighbor instead? The risk here was above substantial. These officers, with the suddenness of what Sonnenberg had thrust them into, were clearly affected. You could see the reaction on Officer O'Toole's face. The emotion he had was raw and genuine. There's no doubt he suffered trauma from this incident. You could feel it in the words written by Officer Zajac. He was actually explicit about that. All of this came from what you have to determine at the end of the day, because we believe in freedom of will in Western tradition, a deliberate decision to consume large amounts of substances and consuming alcohol before working them up to violate that restraining order. He did traumatize the police. He could have traumatized Monica. He might have traumatized his own daughter, who was there and present in the house when this happened. Officer Cassidy, who's here today, helped come afterwards and take care of that. The gravity in this case is too much. This offender is too likely to recidivate violently. It was just nonsense that the Compass assessment said medium violent offense here. The court saw that that was not medium violent offense. The community has to be protected. Sonnenberg needs treatment in a confined setting, and he's already done so much programming that I think the goal of treatment in a confined setting isn't just to do the treatment and bounce him out as soon as possible, but also to make sure he stays there and can practice sobriety to show he's earned it. If he can't maintain sobriety in prison, he's obviously not going to do so out of prison. Finally, other people out there need to know that there will be severe consequences from attacking the police in this manner. There was no reason for this. The court saw that. General deterrence is needed. 7.5 years of initial confinement is needed. I'd ask the court to follow my recommendation. Thank you, and then I'll submit this at the end.
All right, thank you. Ms. Landgraf, I'm now going to turn to you for your sentencing recommendation and argument.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not going to underscore the gravity or the seriousness of the offense. I think we all know how serious this was. The defense understands that this is a prison sentence. I heard the DA say that Mr. Sonnenberg doesn't want to go to prison. He's trying to not to go to prison. That's actually not the case. During our negotiations, we actually offered to resolve with a joint recommendation for a prison sentence. Mr. Sonnenberg knows that this is a prison sentence. When I started representing him in this case, he actually refused to look at the discovery. He was very focused on his hand and the trauma that went through for being shot, because just like Officer Sajak said in his statement that he's not just a uniform, he's a person too. Mr. Sonnenberg is not just a uniform, a jail uniform, he is a person too. It's easy to sit here and say, what if this would have happened? What if that didn't happen? If whatever happened, there would be more serious charges. There would be different charges. That's not the charges that's before the court though. Luckily, the only person who was physically harmed was Mr. Sonnenberg, and he has long-lasting effects. He's never been shot before. And he and I have spent significant amounts of time talking about how the shooting really changed his perspective mentally. This was a whole different ball game for him. I have hope and faith that this incident was so life-altering that it will have an effect to have him make the changes that he needs to make. The PSI and I believe the DA both talked about how he immediately armed himself with a knife. The PSI said that he went into prison mode by grabbing a knife. Mr. Sonnenberg was a teenager when he was sent to a dozen years in the federal prison for dealing drugs in a tribal community with his family. His family was the one that was doing that. He was in and out of foster care for his childhood. He didn't finish school in his childhood. I don't know what society can expect from someone who has that kind of upbringing. He never had a role model in his family. Most of his family members, I think there were 13 or 14 of them that were sentenced to prison along with him. So he comes out of a dozen years in prison for drugs. And while he was in federal prison, he carried a shank. I mean, of course, was he supposed to? No, but I don't know what goes on in federal prison, but apparently that is what goes on in federal prison. And I think we can see that clearly play out if somebody is so messed up on drugs that the first thing they need to do is grab a knife and arm themselves. As the DA said, there was prior incidences with knives. And I agree that this has been a long time with these same issues and that his family knows about it. In fact, his family contacted law enforcement 3 days before this happened. Because Mr. Sonnenberg was kind of out of control, acting crazy. He armed himself with a knife. Mr. Sonnenberg told the police, I want to go to jail. I want to go where it's safe. I think that the alternate PSI kind of talks about that a little bit more, and that's some of the charges that he's facing over in Polk County still. But not that it underscores the importance or the seriousness of his actions on the 16th. I mean, his family did try to intervene. They did contact law enforcement. They took him to jail for the night. I know we can't change the criminal justice system into a mental health system overnight. But this is what happens when we don't have the tools in our society to handle situations like this. At this time, he was not on bond. He was not on supervision. So there was nothing over him that could have, I guess, held him in jail right away. So to prevent the incident on the 16th from happening. Something that struck me that Deputy O'Toole said, he said, Andrew, you will never change. You never take responsibility. He is here. He took responsibility. He did not ask to go to trial. I believe he did with his previous attorney. He wanted to go to trial, but I know that before I became his attorney, he never looked at the discovery because he didn't want to. And when I told him that I would have to withdraw from representing him because I can't ethically go to trial if I know my client hasn't seen the evidence that the state has against him, he reluctantly watched the video. And from that second, his mood and his attitude about this case, 180-degree change. Many of our conversations end like this, or we have to stop because he really is remorseful. He really couldn't believe that Officer Sajak was there to help him. I don't think that he has a very good impression of law enforcement, unfortunately, and given his background and family involvement with law enforcement, I can see how that would be the product of that. But I literally physically saw the change in Mr. Sonnenberg, and I have every single time since I've met with him after he watched that video. And I think in the PSIs, he even tells the PSI that, well, my attorney showed me the video. I didn't know the officers were there to help me. He pled guilty to a very serious charge, and he is here and he is going to accept whatever the court deems is appropriate for him. Would the court be justified in giving him a max sentence? Sure. But Mr. Sonnenberg is not somebody who has had the tools that most people have growing up or even in their adult life. I'm not saying that he deserves a break, but I think that we need to recognize that and consider that. I disagree with him being evaluated previously in the federal and state systems. I've never seen a copy of evaluation. My client says that he was not evaluated before. So I think that a proper full psychological evaluation is absolutely necessary here. I don't know how far the court's authority can go with ordering a TBI evaluation. Mr. Sonnenberg's, after we discuss the PSIs, he realizes how important that would be to have evaluated, and he is going to work with the tribe once he is released to get that evaluation if he cannot get it sooner or in prison. Like I said, the defense is expecting a prison sentence, and we're asking for 6 years, 3 years initial confinement followed by 3 years extended supervision. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonnenberg, I'm now going to turn to you. If you wish to provide a statement here today, you may do so. You are not required to, but this is your only opportunity to tell the court anything about this matter, this case, you, etc., that you wish to let me know before sentencing. It's also your opportunity to correct anything that you may have heard that was stated incorrectly, or anything in these two documents in front of me.
First off, I'd like to say sorry to the law enforcement officers for because I don't remember that night. And the video shows my kid's mom came up first and said my daughter's still in there. But before that, the cops were yelling my name to help me. And I got trauma, you know, and during my incarceration in the feds, I just indulged in drugs. There's more drugs in prison than in some towns. But this changed me, man. And then another incident happened when my daughter was at school. She acted up and said what I said that night to the cops. I don't remember, but that's what made me change hearing that before I seen the video. And I'm sorry for the law enforcement officers to go through what they went through. And I know I need a psych eval, almost for myself, for my family, my daughter. And I'm not that type of dude. just drugs and alcohol were in my system. And I lost my brother and my cousins. I still haven't grieved for my mom yet. I lost her in the hole. That's why I pleaded guilty, because the video shows the cops were trying to help me, and I didn't know. I black out, and sometimes I can't. Well, I got short-term memory loss, you know. But I know that it wasn't right. I'm sorry for causing what they got to go through in life when they're kids, as well as me and my family and my kids. And sorry for the court to going through this, because I know it's their job to label me as a bad man. You know, I'm not that type of dude. I was out there singing with my dad, helping the kids. I never got even a psychic valve in the feds, period. I didn't get no help. In the feds, you pay money, then you get certificates from the dudes that are running it. So where's the help, you know? You just pay through your things to get certificates. It's rugged in there, man. And USP Florence, United States Penitentiary Florence, I never been to prison in my life. And they sent me there. Right when I get there, they give me, it's called the bone crusher. I didn't know that. They said, you gotta live with this daily. And I was like, what? And I just sat back and watched and observed. And going through that throughout my bed and not getting any help with my head, because I was in a coma for a long time. The feds never looked into it. I never got his psychic valve or none of that. They just threw me in them with the wolves. But I'm sorry for this night, man, and to the law enforcement officers. I'm not that type of dude, man. I'm a singer. I'm a dad. With that, man, I want to seek help for myself, because the only one can do it is myself. And that's for me, my family, and my kids, man. So hopefully, come on, you guys come to a power and make you and your family dance. And that's what I do, man.
Right, thank you. I have read all of the documents that I have been provided, the pre-sentence investigation report, as well as the alternate PSI. I have also heard now the statements of the two officers that were present that day, that night, as well as the statement from Mr. Sonnenberg. And I've heard arguments from the court or from the defense, as well as the state. The court watched two body cam videos, the footage of what happened that night from the two officers' different perspectives. They are completely different videos. They're the same thing, same time, happened at the exact same moment the videos were recording, but they were from two separate angles. Now, had I watched only Officer Zajak's video, it doesn't look as serious. You hear Officer Zajak in a very calm voice trying to bring you down, Mr. Sonnenberg, trying to de-escalate the situation. And from Officer Zajak's body cam, you see you coming down with a knife and then beating on the door. And then all of a sudden you see Officer O'Toole raise his weapon and shoot. From that body cam, if that was all the court had to view, it doesn't come across as serious. Until you watch the different perspective from Officer O'Toole. Then you get a complete picture of what happened that night. You see Officer O'Toole approaching the house, hearing from dispatch, he's got a knife, walking up, seeing Officer Zajac at the door, only trying to talk you down and de-escalate. We have a clear view, a clear picture of you with the knife. You're beating the door with your body. You take the knife in your hand and you stab the door multiple times. And in the video, you see just how weak and flimsy that door is. It's a cheap door. And you see the beating of the knife on the glass door and that the door keeps trying to give way. And you not de-escalating. You in fact escalate even more and you push through the door. Officer Zajac then has to run back because you are coming outside of the door with the knife in hand. Then Officer O'Toole reacts and responds in this split second. He has to think and evaluate the situation, and he shoots. Not to kill, to disarm. And you see that you were shot in the arm. You could have been shot dead. I'm not an officer. I don't know what they're trained to do. I'm going to tell you what I'm trained to do with my weapon if I'm in that situation is shoot to kill. You could have died that day. Officer Zajac and Officer O'Toole could have died or been seriously injured that day. Without Officer O'Toole's body cam footage, you don't get a complete picture of what happened. And it's very traumatic. It's very violent. And then we go back in time in that situation of what occurred on December 16th, 2025, and why the officers were present in the first place. Because there was a domestic in progress. A domestic in progress. When those words come over, I'm sure an officer's radio, and they hear that, just as I heard from the officer's statement, domestic in progress, heart starts pumping and escalating. Faster and faster, you get a rush of heat through your body. Anxiety raises. Fear exists. Yet the officer needs to perform his duty and his job and to protect. The officer does not get to have those feelings at that moment. But it doesn't mean they don't exist. Officer Toole at least got the moment right before to walk in to call his wife. That could have been the last time he called his wife. Domestic in progress. We have MM, your former significant other, who has a domestic abuse injunction restraining order against you. We have your 6-year-old daughter and RL, the mother of MM. There could have been far more deaths that occurred that night. Domestic in progress. There has been a significant increase in officer-related shootings and/or officer deaths responding to domestics in progress. And it's uncalled for. I have 2 officers who provided statements. And then I heard in one of them that the officer is human. They have feelings. That's true. Sometimes people forget that because they wear the uniform, they wear the badge, they have the gun, they have the taser. Sometimes the public sees them as robots. People who should just respond and act without thought. And to take all of the criticism, to take the spit, to take the urine, to take the punching, to take the hitting, to take the knives and the guns. Officers are human. They have a job to do and they did it that night. They protected, they served that night. But for the fact that they are there, we have a woman and a child that are safe. But officers, I saw an officer cry. You don't see that very often. Officers experience trauma just like everybody else. They feel pain emotionally and physically. They are victims too. And when I heard your statement, and I heard the argument from your attorney about your perspective of what happened that night, I understand and I hear from your perspective what happened that night. That you were shot in the hand, you were shot through other places, that it was very traumatic for you, that it totally changed your perspective, that you're trying to heal from that night. There's nobody to blame for what happened that night. There's nobody to blame for your injuries but you. Every single step that was taken that day, every single action, by inhaling the substances, by drinking the intoxicants, by going over to a place you knew you legally were not permitted to be near people you were not permitted to be around, was calculated by you. Every single thing that happened that night, including getting shot in the arm, was caused by you. I've had the pleasure of sentencing Mr. Sonnenberg handful of times. The first time Mr. Sonnenberg was in front of me, I remember distinctly and clearly. He was just released from either an extended supervision stay or a prison sentence. He was just out, got into some trouble, but then he found out and discovered he was expecting a child. I remember that clearly. And I remember how excited you were, Mr. Sonnenberg, how happy you were that you were going to be a dad. Because that's all you ever wanted, is what you told the court. Be a dad. Take care of your daughter. Raise her and show her how to be a good member of the community, to teach her your tribal culture and your experiences and those things. I remember clearly. That time, he told me, this time, prison has changed me. This time, I have a daughter and I have a purpose. I'm a different man. Those were words that came out of your mouth, I recall. And yet, you did something awful that night. And I'm not saying I'm not saying towards the officers. You put your 6-year-old daughter in harm's way. Your 6-year-old daughter, who, for the love of God, I don't know if she's here supporting you or not supporting you. She was here today. She would be in here today hearing all of these things about you, seeing a video that literally took me aback. Cold and calculated. It doesn't matter that you are under the influence of alcohol or drugs. That's an excuse. And in your statement, I continue to hear excuse after excuse after excuse. Prison made me this way. Going to prison, they don't change, they don't help, they don't direct. And in your statement to PSI author, when asked if the justice system works, you said, fuck no. You believe the only thing that they can do, the system, is help you before you get out. But they don't even help you in there. You believe the initial charges are excessive. You want to withdraw your guilty plea based upon dissatisfaction with legal counsel and how your case is handled. I don't know if that's prior to Ms. Landgraf or during Ms. Landgraf. It's got to be during Ms. Landgraf because I accepted your plea. She handled your plea. So these were statements you made. You made after your plea. After this time, you had the poof epiphany that you did wrong and that the officers were there to help you. I didn't see an epiphany. I didn't see accountability. I see someone who's trying to dodge responsibility. Someone who's trying to pass the buck. I understand you had a very traumatic life. I read very traumatic life. I've heard from you in various other times, the trauma that you've experienced. What can society expect from the upbringing he had? Well, We don't expect someone to be a violent offender. We don't expect somebody to not take advantage of the services and the programs that the community has to offer. We don't expect somebody to pass the buck and say that it's the system who needed to test for a TBI or a psych eval or do those things. We expect that the system is there to punish and it's there to rehabilitate. You can only rehabilitate if you choose to do that. Change your habits, change your associates, change yourself. That's the only way. And prison isn't easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be a punishment. We all agree that this is not a prison, or this is not a probation case. This is a prison case. That's right there on the table. I have an alternate PSI recommending 3 to 4 years of initial confinement, 4 to 5 years of extended supervision. I have a DOC recommendation of 5 to 7.5 in with 3 to 4 out. I have defense recommendation of 3 in and 3 out. All three very different views and takes on the case. But they all agree it's prison. Because correctional treatment has not yet helped you, but the community, you have not availed yourself of the services in the community to rehabilitate. And this was an extremely, extremely serious offense. I have to take all of the victims into account, all of them, not just the law enforcement, MM, your daughter, RL, all of them. I have to take the community into account as well. Will the community be safe with you in it? At this juncture, it's no. After watching the video and knowing the facts of the case, your attorney is correct. You were not charged with anything. I mean, it's serious, a Class F felony and some misdemeanors thrown in. But it's surprising that you weren't charged with something more serious from watching the videos and knowing the potential harm that everybody was in that night. But you did accept, you did plead guilty. You pled guilty to a serious Class F felony. You're here knowing that you're going to be sent to prison. That's one thing. Everybody can agree that December 16th is a terrible, rotten, awful day. And nothing can change that. No magic wand, can't take away the impact on the victims. It can't take away the trauma that your daughter has experienced. She needs therapy. She needs therapy. I do have to look also at deterrence, specific deterrence, as Mr. Schmidt argued in his statement that enough's enough, this was violent, this was serious. Mr. Sonnenberg needs to be deterred from doing this type of conduct again. But not only that, general deterrence. Enough's enough. When are we going to respect law enforcement? Are they always right? No. Am I always right? No. We have lost respect in our justice system. Yep, there are things that are broken. I see it every day. There are things that this county is trying to do to improve that and to make it better. One thing is we need more respect. We need to follow the rules. We need to follow the law. So the gravity is very serious. I wish I could say that you had rehabilitative prospects that you could receive and do on your own behalf and without needing the assistance of prison. But I can't see that, at least at this point. I know one driving force is your daughter. Be better for your daughter. Be better for your daughter. Because I have seen your softness. I have seen that you are a caring individual when you're not drinking, when you're not using substances, when you're not acting without thinking. What the court needs to focus on the most here in this case is the seriousness of the offense, as well as the needing to protect the public. And this involved an officer shooting, officer-related shooting. You got shot. But it was an incident that escalated to the necessity to do that. So it's very serious, again, with the other victims. So with that and needing to protect the public and to ensure that the public understands the severity of these types of incidents, the court is going to sentence you to 7.5 years of initial confinement, 5 years of extended supervision. It is the max sentence because I believe that this escalated to the max. That video was critical for the court's perspective. Black and white, reading on paper what occurred and hearing arguments that are, let's face it, each one-sided, the state-sided, the defense-sided. It doesn't give me as much as watching that video. So it's a max sentence. Anything less would unduly depreciate the seriousness of this offense. You are not eligible for challenge incarceration program, and due to the severity and violence of this offense, you are not eligible for the earned release program.
Does the court mean substance abuse program too?
That's all of it. No early release programming, no substance abuse, no early release. This is violent. Conditions on extended supervision, absolute sobriety, no use or possession of any illegal drugs, substances, or paraphernalia. Regular alcohol and drug testing. Regular means at least 2 to 3 times a week. A TBI evaluation, a psych evaluation. Follow all recommendations. We're asking for no contact with MM. Ms. Bauer? No contact with MM. You can have contact with your daughter through letters. You can contact your daughter through letters. Your daughter can talk to you on the phone, on video calls, all of those things. Mr. Sonnenberg.
Yeah, can I speak?
What?
Can I speak?
Yes.
Yeah, me and my baby mama wanted to get married, and that's what's
That
good.
causes significant, serious concern with the incident that occurred here with having the restraining order, all of those things. At least at this moment, it's a no contact. She has to go through programming in order for the court to do no abusive contact.
Okay, we'll get her.
I'm not going to hear her on that point right now. I guess I will hear her on that point. However, the court still has its reasoning for any case like this, any domestic. Both parties must go through programming. And now you reminded me, domestic abuse programming. Completion of a domestic abuse program. $518 in fines and fees. Court will enter a civil judgment against you. If you don't pay it, the court will issue a warrant, 6 months in jail you could sit. This is a felony, no use or possession of a firearm for life, no voting in any election until your civil rights are restored. How many days of jail credit? Not including today.
246.
246 days of jail credit. Ms. Bauer? The court will amend or allow the Department of Corrections, I will amend upon proof that she has completed the domestic abuse program. It's no contact until I get proof of the program. But you may still, again, have contact with your daughter through letters, through calls, through those things.
Could I get visits from them in prison? Because my baby's going through, and me being away from her is gonna give her more trauma. That's my life right there.
Quite honestly, I don't think that my conditions on extended supervision are applicable while you are in custody. So you can double check with your DOC agent.
What does that mean?
Means when you're in prison, I don't think my extended supervision conditions of no contact are applicable. I don't think they apply until you are released. However, I'm still not going to change it to no abusive until I have confirmation of a program.
I'm not gonna abuse nobody from here on out. I just want visits from my daughter because that's gonna help me. She
I
needs
will help you.
me in her life.
I 100% agree, Mr. Sonnenberg. She needs you healthy. She needs you sober.
Yeah.
She needs you to be present in her life to the best of your ability.
So I can,
She needs you to make changes.
yeah, I'm gonna. So she can come see me in prison, like when I get there?
Yes.
Thank you. Both of them?
MM would need to get confirmation from the prison or from DOC that these don't apply in the prison setting. It's my belief they don't, but I'm not confident on that 100% because DOC is the one who enforces them.
It's gonna be a hard time not seeing my babies.
However, again, Ms. Bauer's going to talk to her about the program. She can get that done within a couple weeks,
Okay, you're
and it can
right.
be no abusive.
Thank you.
I just need to ensure, especially due to the violent nature of this incident involving her and your child and a knife and a very irate Mr. Sonnenberg. I need to ensure that they are protected and they are safe too.
They will be. You won't hear nothing from me except how good I'm gonna be.
That's what I want to hear. And I want you to be good. I want you to do those things to improve yourself. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, but being shot and being here, I got shot right here. A little bit to the more, I wouldn't be here, but I'm here for my daughter. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry for the law enforcement, what they gotta go through. I'm sorry.
Would have, could have, should have. Sorries don't fix anything or change anything.
Yeah, no,
Action does.
yeah,
Change yourself.
I'm gonna.
Change yourself, and then law enforcement will be happy. The court will be happy. I believe that covers all the conditions. I need your DNA. You're going to provide that. I gave jail credit. I gave the amount owed. Said the felony. What am I missing, Mr. Schmidt?
Nothing from me.
What am I missing, Ms. Landgraf?
Judge, I don't believe you're missing anything, but I would respectfully ask that you reconsider finding him eligible for substance abuse program. I understand that inmates are eligible when there are 4 years or less remaining on their sentence, but given the court's ruling on that, I think the court could order that he could be eligible if he only has 2 years of incarceration left, so he has some kind of program before he gets out.
reconsidered, denied. A sentencing court can determine that a defendant is ineligible for these early release programs if the inmate, even if the inmate otherwise meets all of the necessary requirements and would be eligible per DOC. However, I'm again denying his ability to participate in early release due to his record, due to the violent nature of this crime that is before the court today. Denied.
Nothing further.
One last thing, Mr. Sonnenberg.
Yeah, I like to appeal this because
Good, appeal, 20 days. Talk to
Yeah.
your attorney. We're done. Escort him, please.
Hey, thanks for watching. Please do let us know in the comments what you thought of this video. If you'd like to support what we do here, the best way to do it is to pick up some of our merch. You can find it at courtroomfiles.com.